Midnight in Kentucky has a smell. Damp grass, burnt oil, and the last breath of summer rotting on the shoulder weeds. My truck hums through it, a cube of headlights floating over cracked asphalt. Route 9B from Stanton to Deep Run, 74 miles, 116 boxes, done 5 nights a week. It's the kind of monotony that keeps a man upright. You stop thinking and let the schedule do it for you. The dashboard clock flicks from 12:01 to 12:02 as the old AM radio mutters out farm reports. I glide past tobacco barns black as spilled ink, every fence post tagged with my memory. Out here, every mailbox looks the same until it doesn't. I can tell at a glance if a flag leans wrong or paint fades by a shade. Addresses are scripture. You get one number wrong and somebody's world unravels. Halfway down Barlow Road, a new sign glints where none should be, Ash Fork Loop. I've memorized this run, there's no loop on it. GPS cheerfully agrees, recalculating itself into the void and labeling the lane service unavailable. But there's a house out there, porch light trembling in the fog, a box waiting with the flag raised. I kill the engine, leave hazards blinking, and step into the hum of frogs and power lines. The flag clicks once, down to up, like a wink saying you're expected. Delivering mail after dark isn't glamorous, it's repetition wrapped in diesel fumes. The depot shuts down by 6, daylight carriers clock out, and the rest of us ghosts take what's left. Back roads, mileage, and silence. The pay's better overnight, mostly because no one else wants it. We start every shift under humming fluorescence where the old postmaster, Ray, gives our sort bins a half-hearted pep talk. He calls us couriers of order in a messy world. I always liked that. Once the truck's loaded, the silence begins. Hundreds of envelopes full of other people's worries and promises sitting behind your seat, whispering paper against paper every time you hit a pothole. After midnight, the towns dissolve into black fields. Gas stations become landmarks of sanity, one every 40 miles. The same flickering Coke sign, the same coffee that tastes like scorched rainwater. Farmers on their porches wave even when no light's on, like they're saluting habit itself. Every driver keeps folklore to stay awake. There's the red dog that runs beside your rig for a mile before vanishing, or the phantom way station whose lights appear behind you yet never get closer. We joke about them because it's safer than believing the stories might trace the real roads we drive. I've learned the routes by heartbeat. Left at the church with half its roof gone, right where the asphalt splits around a dead oak. Out here, the map is tattooed into muscle memory. I can deliver blind if the radio holds a steady beat. Last night, that beat stumbled, a single skipped drum like the world blinked. When it resumed, I was already 10 miles deeper than I should have been, following a mile marker I swear was painted new, its white numbers still dripping in the moonlight. The envelope looked innocent enough. Cream paper, black ink, no return address. It sat in the pile like any other until I noticed the odd code in the corner, KY078. Not a zip, not anything I'd seen. I should have left it on the sorter's rack, but habit's stronger than caution, so it went into the crate marked Route 9B. Around 1:30 a.m., the fog turned thick as milk. GPS chimed a right onto Ash Fork Loop again, the same non-existent lane from the night before. Curiosity caught me. I slowed along what should have been cornfield. Instead, the world opened into a cul-de-sac paved in fresh asphalt, edges still bleeding tar. 3 tidy houses stood there, identical blue siding, identical porch swing creaking in air that refused to blow. Their windows glowed like aquarium glass. I double-checked the coordinates. Google insisted I was idling in open pasture. Every physical sign of man, road, mailbox, hum of air units, registered nowhere. Still, mail waits for delivery. I killed the high beams, stepped out, and approached the nearest box. Its address read 1177 Ash Fork Loop, matching the envelope's scrawl. The flag hung down, crusted in dew. When I bent to slide the letter in, the box jerked once beneath my hand, metal flexing like muscle, and the flag snapped upright on its own. The noise it made wasn't metal on metal, but something wet sliding into place. A breath pushed from the slot, fog warmer than the night around it. I dropped the envelope, stumbled back, and watched it vanish into darkness. No flutter, no fall, simply gone. Behind me, all 3 porch lights blinked off simultaneously. And somewhere between the parked truck and that loop of perfect houses, an unseen door closed firmly enough to shake the mirrors. The next morning, the depot felt wrong. Too bright, too busy for the quiet miles still echoing in my chest. Ray handed me a clipboard before I'd even clocked in. 3 complaints from your route, he said, jaw tensed around the peppermint. Folks saying you delivered everyone else's mail but their own. I flipped through the forms. Each grievance had my signature time-stamped correctly, barcodes scanned clean. One woman swore she'd received medical bills addressed to a man 2 towns over. Another said she opened an envelope with her own name on it and found newspaper clippings about her death, dated next week. Well, scanners glitch, Ray said when I mentioned it. You hit dead zones down there, things bounce around. He looked exhausted, not curious. Outgoing mail was piling high, incoming backed up. Just rescan and roll out, keep it neat. After he left, I checked the bin where I'd tossed the cream envelope. Empty. Not in my truck either. Equipment logs still showed its barcode checked in transit. No outscan, no proof of delivery. I started photographing every box, every flag. Phone date stamps don't lie, or so I thought. By noon, half the photos had vanished, replaced with gray squares labeled "File cannot be found." Another showed clear daylight, but I knew I'd shot it at 2 a.m. Shadows on the road stretched the wrong direction, pointing not west, not east, but away from everything. That evening, dispatch radioed to remind me about tonight's run. Their signal cracked with static that sounded like a crowd whispering in chorus. My route numbers, repeated and rearranged as though reciting lines from a sermon. I tried to answer, but the mic only broadcast my voice back to me, delayed and slightly higher pitched. It finished the sentence I hadn't yet spoken. I'm going back to Ash Fork Loop. And then the line went dead, leaving a faint tick of Morse I couldn't translate. 23 miles out of Stanton sits Roper's Fuel in Delhi, the only light for 40 backroad miles. I stop there every shift. 1 coffee, 1 donut stiff as chalk, a word or two with Earl behind the counter. He's been there since before cell towers were a rumor, the kind of man who knows weather by smell. That night, the sky pressed low enough to scrape the truck's antenna. I rolled up to the pump and Earl was already outside, lighting a cigarette under the no smoking sign like usual. "You been running past Cane Hollow again?" he asked before I'd even spoken. "Barlow and Deep Run mostly," I said. "All normal." He squinted through smoke. "Don't sound normal. You're buzzin'. Truck, hair, everything. Root's got static on it." He flicked ash that hissed before it landed. "You seen new signs this side of the ridge?" My stomach twisted. "Maybe." He nodded slow. "Yeah, loop roads come and go. Show up to feed on motion. Same with mail. You keep driving, they keep eating." He leaned closer, eyes reflecting the fluorescent light like a cat's. "Rule's easy, son. After midnight, don't trust a mile marker you didn't drive past yesterday. They move. Sometimes they move you with them." Inside, the radio over the counter crackled to life, though the knob was off. Out drifted a voice that might have been mine, reciting addresses in order, one, then another, climbing toward a number I hadn't delivered yet. Earl snapped the dial out of its socket and stuffed it in the trash. "Bring your route sheet tomorrow," he said, voice low. "I'll show you the parts that still belong here." When I got back to the truck, a map fluttered under the wiper, edges wet with dew. He must have placed it there. Hand-drawn lines in pencil, counties traced like veins, one road circled in red ink, pulsing where it touched Ash Fork Loop. I spent the next afternoon staring at Earl's hand-drawn map. The red circle around Ash Fork Loop looked like something pressed into the paper from underneath, graphite ridges raised higher than the sheet itself. When I laid my courier GPS on top, the device blinked twice and asked to update route geometry. I didn't accept, but the progress bar filled anyway. At 2300, I rolled out with a full crate. Every 10th mile, a street sign differed from memory, name swapped, number changed. County 215 became Old 215, then 215A. My scanner chirped each time, flashing new coordinates as if the world under my tires were editing itself live. By the third delivery, even the mail joined the trick. Packages bearing one address now showed another when I scanned them. Zips rewrote mid-beep. Under the barcode, faint letters itched through the label. Address confirmed by movement. I pulled over near the hollow bridge, opened the door to breathe. Across the river, lights floated where no power lines ran, clusters of house lamps shifting like lanterns on a tide. I blinked. They rearranged themselves into a rough grid of streets, new neighborhoods sketching across farmland. When the wind changed, the scent of tar and freshly cut wood swept through, as if the sky itself exhaled the smell of newly built roads. I needed proof. I snapped photos, recorded coordinates, but the screen refused to capture depth. Each image flattened into the same stretch of empty field. The only trace left behind was distance. When I turned for the truck, it was 2 paces farther than memory, tires half sunken into fresh asphalt that hadn't existed moments earlier. In the beam of my flashlight, the center line twitched, repainting itself northward like a living stripe. The arrowhead at its end pointed straight up the rising hill toward Ash Fork Loop. You are now on your updated delivery path. I couldn't trust satellites anymore, so I dug out the departmental atlas, paper from the 70s, yellowed and reliable. I spread it over the steering wheel and traced my finger from Stanton through Barlow straight to Deep Run. No Ash Fork Loop. I checked the county plat archive in the back of the depot drive-thru that morning. Still nothing. Then Earl's map slid from the glove box, landing open across the old one like a translucent overlay. The roads almost matched. Almost. New pencil marks curved just a degree north, connecting towns that shouldn't touch. The ink of my own log sheets had smudged overnight, columns of mileage bending into arcs. Some deliveries were now written before others supposedly happened, time looping the same way roads were. I decided to re-audit the route in daylight. At noon, the landscape looked normal. Same barns, same spindly oaks, but each mile marker carried 2 numbers, one carved cleanly, the other etched upside down beneath. Closer inspection showed the lower digits were older, worn smooth like gravestones. In the courthouse, I found a planning ledger from 1952 stamped Unincorporated Updates. Someone had penciled a faint sweep through the center of the state identical to my red circle. In the margin, proposed relocation corridor, recurrence expected every 70 years. And beneath that, barely legible, route migration linked to postal trajectory testing. I left copies for proof, but when I glanced back, the Xerox printer sat idle, trays empty. A clerk looked at me blankly, insisted those forms never existed. Driving out of town, I noticed the courthouse clock running backward by 1-minute increments, secondhand jittering as if resisting correction. By dusk, the atlas had redrawn itself again, fresh pencil lining the page where my headlights swept across. In tiny script near the fold, someone had added an instruction that hadn't been there before: keep the mail moving or the world stops. Crossing into Cane Hollow County always feels like sinking underwater, but that night the darkness was absolute. One moment, my high beams carved the usual twin tunnels through fog. The next, the world swallowed them whole. No moon, no stars, not even the orange blink of a distant radio tower. Just black air thick enough to weigh on the truck's hood. The dashboard lights dimmed to ember. I checked the battery. Fine. Engine purred like nothing was wrong. Yet every gauge needle trembled slightly, as if the truck were shivering. I eased off the gas. The white-painted center lines ahead of me rippled, bending into lazy curves, spilling off the road like handwriting. When the first rumble started, I thought it was thunder. Then I realized it came from the cargo bay, the mail itself, boxes vibrating against metal shelves. I pulled over and climbed out. The air tasted metallic, almost sweet. Every envelope in the back glowed faintly blue around its edges, postage seals shimmering like beetle shells. Some of the labels sweated ink, droplets running sideways rather than down. I made the mistake of touching one. The paper came alive under my thumb, pulsing in rhythm with the soft hum rolling through the valley. The address blurred, rearranged itself mid-blink. 12 Cane Hollow Road, 1200 Cane Hollow, 0 Cane Hollow. Then it vanished, leaving skin printed with a new route number, mine. Behind me, the trees along the shoulder leaned inward, pine tops swaying without wind. Far down the line, a light flicked on, a house lamp, impossible here where no power runs, and another, forming a trail that led deeper into the county. My scanner pinged happily, populating each glow as a fresh delivery point. I should have turned around, but the automatic transmission slipped itself into drive, idle rising on its own. Headlights burst back to life, blazing over freshly painted asphalt I'd never driven before. Every mile marker read 90B, repeated forever, marching forward like a command I couldn't disobey. Around what should have been mile 90B, though that number had repeated for hours, the road simply stopped pretending to be straight. It coiled between fence posts that hadn't been hammered in yet, looping on itself tighter and tighter until my headlights fell over the same patch of gravel 3 times. Every pass, the shapes along the ditch had shifted. 1 mailbox, then 2, then a dozen lined like skeleton ribs gleaming in dew. I killed the engine. The world exhaled. Even the crickets held their breath. The nearest box stood crooked on its post. The numbers on it, painted white, rearranged themselves while I watched, the digits sliding off like melting wax until they spelled my own address and name. Paper rustled inside. The sound wasn't dry, it was wet, a heartbeat against tin. I eased closer, flashlight low. The brass door clicked open without my help, revealing a single envelope resting upright as though waiting to be shaken loose. No stamp, no barcode. The handwriting matched mine exactly, right down to the slant of the Y in my last name. The address read, "To the carrier, currently watching." A wind moved through the boxes, a hollow whistle, one flag lifting after another until every mailbox pointed at me. My phone lit for no reason, camera app open, lens flashing not at the scene but toward me, reversing my face into violet tint. For a second I smelled the depot, coffee, diesel, Ray's menthol breath, everything familiar returning in a rush of impossible distance. When I blinked, the mailbox stood inches away, post newly set into asphalt, number changed again, end of route. My reflection flickered in its brass door, lips moving half a word ahead of my own. A whisper came from both mouths at once. "You're the delivery." Instinct won over sense. I ripped the seal. Inside were folded route maps drawn in thick black pencil, my handwriting looping through them like a nervous vein. Each mark carried next week's dates. Whole towns were circled, then crossed out. The older the date, the thicker the graphite. The newest entries still smelled of lead. Across the bottom margin, scrawled in hurried strokes, read the single instruction: return to sender before he wakes. The pages weren't paper. Under the flashlight they shimmered like laminated skin, translucent enough to show faint, pulsing waterways beneath. The Ohio, the Licking, the Kentucky, reddened and alive. In the distance, someone closed a mailbox door. The clap echoed up and down the road as if passed from box to box, a chain reaction of hollow knocks fading into the hills. I folded the map anyway. My own signature on it seemed to move, crossing itself out as soon as I looked away. The radio in the cab blew to life, unprompted. Ray's voice, soft and measured. "Courier 9 Bravo, you're missing scheduled stops. Please follow the adjusted delivery matrix." "Adjusted?" I said, but he kept talking over me, voice splitting in 2 frequencies, one high and human, the other deep as distant thunder. "You have 5 minutes before route end resets. Return to sender before he wakes." I grabbed the mic, shouting, asking who he was. Only static answered, then a faint relay of my own question repeated in reverse. The air around the truck thickened with the smell of rain, even though the night was clear. Letters on the seat squirmed under their envelopes, rearranging themselves into new delivery orders. On the dashboard, the route map app glowed amber, auto-updating. Every destination blinked out one by one until only a single pin remained, a hollow dot pulsing on the county edge, labeled sender. When the voice came again, calmer, closer, it wasn't through the radio, but right beside me in the passenger seat. "You've got his mail mixed with yours, Jack. Time to sort it out." The road stretched outward like film unspooling, endless, same curve repeating, white lines sliding under the tires in a staggering loop. I drove for miles, yet the fuel gauge refused to drop. The clock blinking between 2:59 a.m. and 3 a.m., never reaching either. Every so often, the radio sparked alive with fragments of weather reports, funeral notices, my own delivery logs whispered by strangers. Windshield wipers screeched against a dry pane. The fog outside pulsed faintly orange, though no dawn was due for 3 hours. Whenever the light thickened, I'd pass the same intersection again. 4 road signs spinning on their poles, as if trying to decide which name they belonged to. The letters tumbled: Deep Run R, Route 9B, Ashfork Loop, then something new: Courier End. The direction arrow shifted each time I looked. A mailbag behind me toppled. Envelopes spilled, scattering like pale birds across the cab. Their return addresses blurred and then synchronized, all showing the same sender: the United States, care of itself. Every envelope whispered the same thing in crisp paper size: keep the mail moving. I pressed harder on the accelerator. The speedometer trembled past 90, then folded to 0 while the truck still roared forward. Shapes began sliding along the horizon, fence lines that bent into circles, telephone poles repeating like a mirrored hallway. Then headlights bloomed ahead. Another truck, identical to mine, coming fast. I flashed signals, swerved, but in a blink it passed through me cleanly, leaving frost on the inside of the windshield and an after-image of myself driving the other way, eyes wide and mouth moving as if praying. The GPS chimed softly: rerouting, remain on Lost Highway until delivery is complete. I looked down at the seat beside me. The strange envelope from He Who Wakes had slid open again. Inside, fresh ink crawled across the map, drawing a single circle around where I now sat. The message finalized itself in new handwriting, not mine this time. Stay in motion. The road is hungry when you stop. I finally caught a patch of reception near where the highway should have spat me back toward Stanton. A green light blinked on the dispatch console, and relief washed through me so sudden I almost laughed. I keyed the mic. 9 Bravo to Depot, requesting verification of route manifest. Something's wrong with the directories. For a long half-minute, only the rhythmic tick of the hazard lights answered. Then Ray's voice filled the cab, perfectly calm, the same steady drawl I'd heard 100 nights before. Copy that, 9 Bravo. We have your coordinates. Hold position and we'll update the master sheet. Static fluttered, followed by a softer echo of his sentence overlapping itself a half-beat later, like 2 recordings playing slightly out of sync. Hold position, the echo repeated, slower, lower, stretching each syllable. I can't hold, I said. Highway's looping. Everything's mapping itself wrong. Copy, said the first Ray. Mapping itself right, murmured the second. The hairs on my arms lifted. I tried again. Requesting instruction. Do I proceed to sender? Both voices answered at once, one crisp, one distant. Yes. You already did. The dual tone caused the mic to buzz with harmonic feedback, low enough to rattle my ribs. I pulled the plug, but the voices kept coming, now from the speaker in the glove box, from the CB that hadn't worked in years, even from the narrow metal throat of the air vent. Each voice carried my own breathing beneath it, like I was talking through them, parallel versions of me dispatching orders to stay en route forever. When I screamed for them to stop, the radio clicked off mid-word. The resulting silence felt heavier than any noise, dense, decisive. Then, just above the whine of the engine, a new voice whispered through the static of the world itself, one I recognized instantly despite never hearing it before. "Jack, the mail's almost home. Keep driving until the road delivers you." The whisper guided more surely than any map. I followed it through miles that refused to end, headlights dragging a thin tunnel through gray air until a glow appeared ahead, low and steady like a porch lamp waiting in an empty valley. When I crested the final hill, the road straightened into perfect black glass. No cracks, no gravel, just mirrored asphalt reflecting my truck exactly beneath it, tires spinning over their identical pair. At the far end stood a single mailbox planted in the middle of the lane. White paint, red flag, stenciled number 1 route end. I stopped 50 feet short, engine idling in its own echo. The mailbags behind me trembled softly, paper rustling in one long inhale. Every envelope's seal split open at the same moment, contents fluttering upward until the cab filled with circling pages. The engine's hum transformed into a strange cadence, almost human, chanting the same 5 words through vibrating metal: "Keep the mail moving." I stepped out. The world had gone silent except for my heartbeat and the dry clicking of letter paper drifting around my boots. The glow from the mailbox pulsed with the exact rhythm of that heartbeat. Inside the open slot waited a hollow wider than logic, blackness so deep it bent the air around it. I held the first stack of letters and felt heat through the envelopes, like they reached for home. One by one, I slid them in. The darkness inhaled each with a sigh. When the last was gone, the mailbox whispered back, my name, spoken by 100 overlapping voices. Then the flag raised itself, slow and deliberate. Above, the sky over the valley reshaped into a spiral of streetlights and house lights, forming a map of every address I'd ever driven. They glowed, linking, tracing the Kentucky backroads until the pattern curved into a constellation the shape of my truck. I signed the manifest, lying on the ground beside the post. The pen bled upward, ink rising into the nib as though time ran in reverse. In the far distance, a new cluster of porch lights flashed alive, an unseen neighborhood testing its circuits. The air tasted of ozone and paper dust. The mailbox whispered one last instruction, gentle as breath. "You've delivered. Now wait to be picked up." The road behind me folded its stripes inward, sealing the route like a letter finally sent. A month later, dispatch filed the usual missing courier report. Truck 9B was recovered 20 miles off its mapped corridor. Engine ice cold, hazard lights dead, odometer scrolling backward. The mail manifest was complete, every parcel accounted for, yet none of the listed zip codes exist on record. Internal investigators described the recovered vehicle's interior as uncomfortably intact. Coffee still warm, seatbelt buckle imprinted a faint handprint instead of a clothed torso. Under UV, they found route sheets rewritten in identical looping handwriting, one column titled "Delivered Here, Received There." Rumors in the depot say Ray received a post-delivery postcard the same week. No stamp, no cancellation mark, just a smear of black graphite and a single sentence: "Mail moves even when we don't." The service's official memo quietly retired Route 9B and warned subcontractors against traveling through Cane Hollow County after midnight until geospatial audits are complete. Earl's Fuel and Deli boarded its windows the following day. Locals claim on clear nights you can still see a faint line of porch lights forming, vanishing, reforming deeper in the hills, following the river south, always moving. Unconfirmed reports mention strange letters showing up in barns, glove compartments, kitchen drawers. Each bears an unfamiliar postmark, Ash Fork Loop Transit. Every envelope is addressed to the recipient's current location, written in their own hand. If you ever find one, don't open it. Don't read your own return address. Put the letter back wherever you found it, step inside, and stay very still until sunrise. Because once an address learns to move, it remembers every route it's taken, and it always delivers the same thing back. Keep your mail, keep your name, keep moving.